Earlier in the tutorial, we talked about Control Z, which was essentially undoing any geometry or any kind of operations, really, that we have done through our 3D modeling and we are really unhappy about, or we realize that we need to revert back a few steps and kind of retrace the steps by Control Z, and then you kind of go back into modeling again. So something else that's going to be helpful here as we move along is the eraser tool. Now you can activate it through the tool palette. It's this sort of red eraser here, or pink, depending on, yeah, I think it's pink. Or you can do E for a shortcut on the keyboard. And something that I want to really emphasize is using the eraser for just a clicking function is kind of dangerous when you're modeling. And I'll explain to you what that means. So let's say I'm going to have this cube here. I'm going to just go ahead and make a copy so we have something to kind of look at. I'm going to ungroup it, explode. And let's say I want to, erase this surface. I'm going to go ahead and go on the eraser tool, but I cannot actually click and delete the surfaces. In order for me to delete and erase surfaces, I actually have to do the direct selection tool, which is the black cursor, right? The mouse cursor. Click, and then hit delete on my keyboard. But what the eraser tool does give me the ability to do is to delete lines. And so once I delete this line, I'm gonna delete both planes, both surfaces that were closing this cube, because this line is essential in forming both of these faces. So why is the eraser tool dangerous? Well, let's say your model is very complex and you have many geometries kind of intersecting and overlapping, and you go in there and you start deleting some lines, and then you realize, you're 40 steps in and you're like, but I didn't want to delete those lines. Those were actually making up this space. So for those reasons, because it is very easy to delete lines and the geometry that goes with it, I highly advise that you use the selection and delete from the keyboard of command to delete any of the geometry or items that are unnecessary that you no longer want. Because if you do it the other way, it's a high risk of you deleting a geometry that could affect another surface without you actually seeing it right away and then noticing down the line that that was a mistake. Now that we're sort of understanding how SketchUp is a line and surface program, we're going to be using it to create walls and to kind of create different architectural and design elements. So one thing that I want to cover is the offset tool. Let's say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and do a line here that is going to be locked into the y-axis. So I'm going to hit left, and this line is going to be 30 feet. I'm going to lock it in by hitting the right key, so I have that extra thickness, right, extra line, by 30 feet. And I'm going to go down 30 feet in the green axis, and I'm going to go ahead and close that rectangle out. So something that I want you to know is I'm going to make a copy of this so you're able to follow what I mean with the offset command. I'm going to go ahead and delete the surface. So we have a square that's 30 by 30 without a surface, and we have a square surface that has lines and the actual surface, right? So the offset tool is this tool here on the tool palette that has a red arrow with a black circle and then a red circle. And I'm going to go ahead and activate the offset tool, or hit F for a shortcut. When I hover over the surface with the lines, I sort of see that same texture that I would see if I wanted to push or pull this surface. When I have just a square with lines, the offset tool doesn't have anything to grab onto, and so you'll see the cursor has a sort of red out sort of slash through it, circle and a slash, which means that function is not possible. So when we're offsetting, you have to be offsetting with a surface to be offsetting with. And so let's go in here in this 30 by 30 and say, this is a perimeter wall that I want to keep at 30 by 30. So right now, if I do a dimension, it's going to be 30 feet by 30 feet. And that is the extent of the building, let's say. So anything that I'm going to offset will have to be towards the inside, because I have to keep true to the 30 by 30. So I'm going to go ahead and hit F for offset, and I'm going to go ahead and activate the line and the surface, and I'm going to click once and then start to hover inward. And you see how SketchUp has done a square that, depending on where I move my cursor, it's saying, is this the offset distance you want? And however, let's say I want these walls to be 8 inches thick. I'm going to type in 8 and then the quotation symbol for my keyboard and hit enter. And SketchUp has done now a subdivision of this surface. I have the first surface here, and that is the offset surface of 8 inches. And then I have the original surface that was part of the cube, right? Part of this sort of square. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. And now when I push and pull, I'm pushing and pulling this 8-inch wall. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, make this 20 feet high. So now I have a 30 by 30 space with 8-inch walls that we specified and created out of a surface offset with the offset command. One of the sort of last bits to cover here that I want to make sure you have is the tape measure and the dimension tool. A lot of you have seen me, do these dimension lines, so you're able to, or I was able to verify the dimension to be what I was typing into the command bar with the keyboard, and also just to verify and double check my own work. There's two things here to feature. First, I'm going to start with the dimensions because that's actually what we were just going through, and you can activate that by doing D on the keyboard for a shortcut. And the way that it works is you click where you want to start the measurement from, and you click where you want to end, and then you can just drag out wherever you want to have this dimension string be. So then it's like a 3-part process. Again, I'm going to click D for shortcut. I'm going to click the origin of my measuring, click the second point of origin where I want it to end, and then drag out where I want that dimension string to appear. Okay, so that's the D for dimension. Now, there's something else called the tape measure, which it sounds like you're also going to use it for dimensions, but it's a little bit different. Now, the tape measure will give you the length. If you notice, when I click on the origin point and I drag over and don't even click again, but on the command bar at the bottom right, I can see that that is reading 30 feet. And I don't even have to click on it to know that. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape, and I'm going to orbit around and say from here to here, that's also reading 30 feet. Now that's one way to do it, but the dimension line is doing the same thing. So what essentially the tape measure is doing is you can do a quick check without having to have any dimension lines on the model. But the coolest feature about the tape measure, and you should know this because it's super helpful when you're modeling, I'm going to go to this square that we have without a surface, is the tape measure allows us to create guides or modeling guides. And so, for example, I'm going to click here once and I'm going to drag out. Let's say I want this guide to be 5 feet here, right? And then from this wall, there's going to be a bedroom that's 15 feet there. So essentially what we could do is use these guides almost like a rough floor plan or construction lines. So when we're actually modeling, we can just follow and connect the dots. So check this out. I'm going to go to the L tool. Let's say, I had said that this is going to be 15 feet, and this is actually 5 feet here. So now what I have the ability to do is this is going to be 10 feet high, this is going to be 30 feet high. Sorry, let's add another 20 to that. I'm going to go ahead and do this at, let's say, a 5-foot addition. So it allowed me to kind of subdivide it in the way that I wanted to really quickly. We can just go ahead and push and pull, and then we can just start playing around and knowing that we're sort of following these guides, right? Or just extruded this surface to follow these guides. So let's say I'm going to go T for tape measure. I want a guide to be at midpoint of this, and there I snap it, draw a line, and now I'm able to carry on from that midpoint. Let's try that again. T for tape measure, grab that line wherever I want to place it, and I'm going to do the L for drawing an extra line, and I'm going to bring that, I'm going to bring this surface over. And so guides are a very clean way to model, in that it guarantees you straight and vertical and horizontal lines that are not askewed or in an angle. And this is where I would use the eraser tool. You can simply just click on the guides and do the eraser tool. However, this is actually something to note. So we just covered guides in the previous example. When you have a group, sometimes, and I don't know if it's going to happen to you, but sometimes I've seen folks do a group. I'm going to do Command G, or you can do Control G for a shortcut on grouping. And then what's happening is the guide is grouped with the object. And so let's say you're very happy with the geometry and you no longer have a use for these guides. I grouped these together, but let's just go ahead and explode. Let's say you wanted to delete all of these. You don't have to actually go one by one. Something that I would recommend for you to do is go to your edit command and then do delete guides. And that will take care of all the guides that are in the model, so you don't have to go guide by guide. So again, creating guides is a very quick way for you to have lines that are parallel to forms that are parallel to your model, so you're able to keep in line with what you already have going on, and it makes the modeling a bit more accurate. And then you're able to, expand and use them as snapping points as well as you go along in your modeling. And then once you're done using them, so you have a cleaner kind of interface, you can go into edit and delete guide. All right, folks, well, you have been with me through this whole SketchUp tutorial. A couple of last things that I do want to cover to make sure that you're understanding also the views that you're able to capture in the SketchUp modeling interface is going to be accessed at the very top toolbar. We have the ability to do the perspective view, which is kind of where I've been showing you the 3D angles from. We have the top view, which kind of just gives us everything from the Y to the X, and then the Z is sort of where we're coming from. We have the ability to view things from the right, from the left, and from the front. So play around with these sort of views so you're able to better maneuver around your model and your 3D spaces, and just have fun with it. One last thing. SketchUp has the ability to run backup files. These are saved as ASKBs, and it can particularly help when your computer crashes all of a sudden, or maybe you override something in your model. When you save your model, I'm going to go ahead and hit Save As, and you'll see that it's going to prompt me to save it in the directory of choice. However, the extension to be mindful of are two things. If I have an SKP, as in party, that is the model itself. If I have an SKB, B as in beautiful, that is the backup file. And any backup file can be activated as long as you change the B from beautiful to P in party. Well, that pretty much covers our basics SketchUp tutorial. I hope that you learned some new things here. And if some of these tools were already familiar or you've used them in the past, I hope this was a good refresher to set the foundation of what's coming next. As always, if you have any questions or require further clarification, please reach out. I would love to walk you through it. I want to keep learning so we can keep exploring what all three-dimensional software is out there. I'll see you next time.